Just to
little
know.
background
Yeah,
of
so
what a good education
good education
is about.
is about
Yeah.
it's a
Slide on
non-fiction. It's going to come up
that? Okay.
somewhere.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So yeah, so good education is about. I was living in Lajpat Nagar. It's a story in the Partition anthology, and it's about we were growing up in this refugee home in Lajpat Nagar, and I was interacting a lot with the refugee kids there. And we are ourselves the refugees, but we are more the privileged refugees. So this is this whole dilemma going around in the house that this guy is spending too much time with these refugee kids, so he's likely to get spoiled. So we must put him to good school, and there are no good schools around because my grandmother really wanted me to put me up in a Bengali school so that I could learn some Bengali.
Sort of
there.
mid 70s, late
Yeah,
70s.
yeah, late mid 70s, yeah. And then there's a new school called Bluebells that happened somewhere in a garage, in a house there on Firoz Gandhi Marg. So they said, okay, that's the nearest school, let's put him there. And there's a whole dilemma in the house as to, but then he'll never learn Bangla. So says, forget the Bangla, let's just put him into a school, and and this guy's getting spoiled. Yeah. So it's about that particular story and how I got into this particular school, and I stayed there for the rest of my school years. And it's intercut with my grandmother's experience in a refugee home in a place called Dandakaranya, which is in central India, which is now known for the Red Corridor.
But she had written this book about her
Experiences, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So, well, she was not technically supposed to write it because she was under oath by the government of India. Because she was supposed to go there and get children from the camps into Delhi so that they would get educated under a government scheme, and they would be
This
taken
is
away from their mothers.
1971 Bangladesh, sort of East Pakistan, Bangladesh.
This is a
refugees.
lot of the refugees who start coming in from 65 till 71.
Okay, so post 47 as well as
Yes.
Yeah.
And they are brought in, and she's supposed to be representing the state, and
It's a long way from Bangladesh, isn't it?
well, they all came to West Bengal first, and then they were put into different places like Central India, Andamans,
Yeah.
Nainital.
Yeah.
So this is a lot that goes into
But your
Central
grandmother,
India.
who is, I mean, you actually collaborate this particular
Piece
narrative
with
with
her
your
text,
grandmother.
yes. So she writes this book.
Omiya Sen.
Yeah, so she writes this book, and she writes this book under cultural garb, and she gets it published.
Okay.
Because had she published it as a non-fiction piece, she would have lost her job.
Okay.
So I have taken a lot of the text from her book and her interaction, because she says, I'm supposed to take these widows, I'm supposed to convince these widows to give away their children. Supposed to carry them to Delhi, and they will not meet them for the next 10 years of their lives. And I'm supposed to convince them, please let go of your children. They've lost their land, they lost their families, they lost their husbands. Now they're supposed to lose their children as well. So, for her, it's that dilemma of being a woman, being a representative of the
telling
state.
parents, mothers
Yes,
in
the mothers
particular,
there.
that your kids are going to get a better life, but the deal is, it's a sort of Faustian deal.
It's a
isn't
very
it?
Faustian deal, and also what the government does not tell them initially is that even your dole is going to get cut.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So for her, it's the dilemma: how do I get this point forward? Till she gets stumped at a point where this woman says, "You take them. We don't want them here. At least let them have a life." So that really stumps her. So for me, that is an important part of the story,
course.
because here she is dealing with her own grandson's education, getting spoiled, all of that, and it's such a minor problem compared to theirs.
Of course. Yeah.
So for me, that is the interesting part of that story: is how do we deal with both your own experiences which you had in that refugee camp and your experiences at home. So for me, it's interesting to revisit that particular part of history. And it's not that I'm trying to tell people what Dandakaranya camp is. I think it's also I'm trying to know what Dandakaranya camp would have been like, because they don't exist anymore.
Okay. They
don't exist anymore. What happened was that
it's a bit it's sort of semi-mythological, isn't it?
Yes.
In that sense.
And they've disappeared, right?
And Dandakaranya has certain genuine mythological.
Yeah, it's the place of
it.
exile, because
Yeah.
even Ram went for his
That's
exile
right.
to Dandakaranya. So
That's right.
it's the fate of that
Yeah.
place to be a refugee camp forever.
So it is a sort of modern Amar Chitrakatha, if you will.
Well, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And but if you look at even Lajpat Nagar, even that's a modern Amar Chitra Katha
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
because I mean, Lajpat Nagar is a place, and I've said this in many places, that Lajpat Nagar is a place which is usually, basically, it's a refugee colony. The West Pakistan refugees were settled there. They got land and they were settled there. And within that space, there's a small little piece of land called Kasturba Niketan, where the Bengali refugees, the impoverished, backward caste Bengali refugees, were put into the homes, right? And they demanded their sense of citizenship for 20 years. And while working on this story, I visited that place. It doesn't look anything like that. It doesn't look like anything but a refugee home, because that same piece of land has been divided by the inmates of the refugee camp, and they've been given that particular land. Now what they do is they build these small little houses there and they rent it out further to the Afghan tourists. And they get rents in dollars at par with GK or DEFCON. So it's the fate of Lajpat Nagar again to be, you know, refugee forever. So for me, these places are very interesting because they are like you, as you said, I mean, the modern mythologies. So exploring these places, you know, I mean, Lajpat Nagar is still a BJP stronghold, because the West Pakistan Punjabi went for a sense of identity in that particular party. And they let these guys in who are Muslims, who eat meat, you know, all of that. And the Afghans started coming into Lajpat Nagar even when we were kids during Najib's time. So it's very interesting how these places change the characters of the people, but not the places itself.
As in, sort of, the geographical structures remain the same, but you have this whole thing. It's almost like a sort of stop motion camera kind of thing happening. I mean, politics, identity, these are all extremely serious things, but we're talking about also your ability to tackle the satirical genre. You have dealt...
I think that's the problem, because I think I've positioned myself far too seriously.
No, I don't think you're the guy in the corner wearing the blue shorts only. Sometimes you wear, you know, briefs and all that. But
because you know, there are not, every piece that I do has to do with politics. I mean, I just...
absolutely.
I did a piece in Time Out, which was on an Iraqi restaurant. It was a piece about translation. It was about
but you got typecast.
Food. Yeah, I was typecast. I mean, the blurb said, usually the hostess piece talks more about politics than food. It was actually about food.
Everybody, he's not a, he's not
I'm a foodie.
He's a foodie who happens to spill into politics and identity because of the menu card, which is in front of him. But you do, I mean, we've talked about this before in terms of satire. I'm just going to read out that bit right at the beginning from Delika to sort of give you an idea about a very sort of small, and there's sort of lots of it throughout this book at least, which is satirical. I mean, for instance, you start this right at the beginning. It's about the emergency. It doesn't matter anymore, for it was of no interest or relevance even while it was happening. Any resemblance to persons, living or dead, is entirely coincidental. This is a work of fiction, self-censored. I didn't read the first two sort of lines consciously because it was nothing like this ever happened. If it did, it doesn't matter anymore, for it was of no interest, blah, blah, blah.
This is probably this particular para is probably why the book is still there, out there.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, we brought it out. I mean, one of the biggest questions we were asked is that, you know, there's this party which is in power, and you're trying to bring out this book at that point of time. I mean, you must be brave. We gave it two reasons. A, no one reads graphic novels. Two, we are brave people. Yeah. So.
Okay, so there's one reason. No one reads graphic novels. The second one is a redundant. Anyway, but the point.
It's not redundant.
Yeah. No, but the point I'm trying to make is like, satire is a tricky business here, and I'm not only talking about people getting pissed off and all that. I'm talking about sometimes satire won't even appear as satire because, you know, it's already there out there. I mean, if you look at a chief minister of West Bengal, gets completely furious because somebody Facebooks a cartoon. That could be a very bad story, which I'm sure both Arpita and Kartika here will reject, publishers, because it's not a very good satire. I mean, so my question is like, when you're dealing with satire, don't you find certain difficulties, especially when you're dealing with the Indian leadership?
I'll give an example.
Yeah.
A few months back, I put up a post on Facebook, which I had lasted out some 17 points, is that we should be asking the Aam Aadmi Party is to what is your stand on this thing. So it started from what is your stand on Kashmir, and it came down to what is your stand on Srinivasan in BCCI or something like that. And it was clearly a very long piece of satire.
Yeah.
But what happened was it was getting shared by people who were anti-Aam Aadmi Party, and it was also getting shared by the Modi fans.
Right.
So the piece became a hit, but not by the people I really wanted to, or in the tone I really wanted it to.
For the reason you wanted.
Or for the reason I wanted it to. So that's the danger with satire, is that it can get lapped up for its own convenience by either side.
Okay.
And I think probably that's the failure of satire. Or good satire is that it should clearly mark out that this is ridiculous satire.
No, but I mean, people talk about a joke not working, or a particular kind of literary novel not working, because the writer's not got it right. That's your regular criticism. The thing about satire is, more than any other form, it probably works both ways. Sometimes the reader is not equipped with the mechanism of how to deal with satire.
Because satire presumes that you know a bit about that, right?
There is a certain element of pre-knowledge that the reader comes, or you would assume. I mean, when you're talking about, let's say, making fun of, there are certain sequences in which...
Don't take names, huh? Don't take names.
Not even Vishwajyoti Ghosh?
No, as in,
No, but the suspense is killing everybody here.
Yeah, right.
But I'm just saying that, so what happens when you also do, I remember when I was in Hindustan Times, you used to do sort of your weekly political cartoons. And that's sort of, for me, a sort of present tense historical snapshot in which you were being satirical. And you were being satirical over weeks. I remember sometimes we used to get letters saying this is brilliant, sometimes it was like, So, I mean, and we've actually talked about this, about, how difficult is it for, not a graphic novelist, but a cartoonist. And I'm switching gears a bit here. And you do use cartoons elements in your works.
Yes. So, see, I think it's a bit easier because you're doing a cartoon, because it's a cartoon. It's a box which is meant for the cartoon, and the reader will not go there expecting anything else but a cartoon. So
so you come to a booze shop thinking you're buying booze.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're buying booze. So that way it gets easier.
But when it's a graphic novel?
Well, when it's a graphic novel, then it becomes tricky, because I don't know, because people might expect, oh, this is a graphic novel, it's a comic, it's not funny.
But one of the beauties of a novel is it contains all forms. I mean.
Yes, this is the beauty of a graphic novel, which you can use so many influences, whether it's mainstream political cartooning or cinema or geography or history. You can just use everything, and it gives you that liberty. Graphic novels gives you that liberty to move across time and space.
So do you think that some people don't have, they don't come prepared for what you have when you're bringing a graphic novel out? I mean, not only you.
One of the criticism of Delhi Come is that this book tells me.
You were too anti-Congress. Is that one?
It's like asking, what's the difference between a comic and a graphic novel? Okay. It's a book on emergency, for God's sake, and it's not written by Kushwant Singh. The thing was that the criticism that came across, at least one critic I remember said that why do I have to go to the Google to find it out? And I think which is the point of this book is, if you're interested, then go to Google and find out more about this book.
I thought sort of part of the whole process, and I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to whoever asked you, is for you to be given some information by reading something.
Yeah.
Which is the original purpose of Amar Chitragatha.
Which is the original purpose of anything.
Avatar kaun hai, yaar?
This is the original purpose of anything.
Have you read my books? No.
No, I did find out a little bit of Bengali cinema from Bioscope Man, and I came across a few cult films around that.
Okay. Let's not go there.
Yeah.
I don't want to sort of push everything only into the narrative. I also want to talk a bit about your style of art, the visual style. One of the things I've noticed, both in the piece in this side, that side, as well as Delhi Calm, as well as your other works, whether it's Full Toss, which was the column you did for us, Then, shit, Then.
It's a peg.
But you have very different visual styles in a sort of